Hi there, it's Serena, that Rebecca girl, and today I'm showcasing the deck list that I took to the Carta Magica Treasure Cup this weekend. Starting off the deck list, we have 3 Carta Coliseum. It's the most important card in all of your matchups, giving all of your characters rush, and enabling Luffy to be very impactful and attack active characters on the turn he's played. Next, we have 4 Rebecca Searcher. In most of your matchups, Carta is one of the best cards you can find in your deck on top of Sabo, Mancherry, and Orlumbus. And having 4 searchers makes you see all those cards more consistently. Next up, we have 4 Kairos, which is one of the best cards in the deck, being able to protect himself twice if you have stage on the board, and on play, KOing a card, and then being able to rush into something. Then we have 4 Orlumbus, which is one of the best cards in the deck, essentially just being a Kuzan that has counter and doesn't need to swing. And then he can also fill your trash to be able to grab stuff back with Rebecca and put stuff back into the deck with Luffy. Next we have 4 Rebecca Blocker. Obviously we need to run 4 of this card. It's one of the best cards in the game, being able to recycle something and be a blocker and then cheat something out for free is extremely powerful, and there's no reason to run any less than 4. Next we have 3 Sabo. This is a great card, allowing you to filter your hand and protect your board into Lucci and any other deck that wants to KO your blockers or any of your big bodies. And then we have 1 Mancherry. She's great. She really helps you stabilize in the late game, allowing you to recur 2Ks or Rebecca blockers or Sabos to protect your board. And sometimes in a lot of cases, you can recur stuff like KOs like Kairos or Brook to be able to remove your opponent's board. Next we have 4 Bardos. This is a standard part of Rebecca. He is searchable and recurable off of Rebecca blocker and Mancherry, plus being able to be a chump blocker for if you don't have Rebecca or you need to drop more than 1 blocker a turn. He is great. Next we have 4 Toy Soldier. Being searchable and cost reduction makes him really strong, and no reason to run any less than 4. And then we have 2 Gyats. I'm pretty much only running him to up our 2K count to 10. It helps us have a lot more stable of an early game into aggro decks like Dofi or just anything else that you might find. And then in niche cases, you can just use him to target himself and swing 1K into a Rebecca blocker or any other small bodies that your opponent wants to leave standing. Next, we have my matchup specific techs. I like having 3 Luffy and 2 King Kong. Luffy is extremely powerful into a bunch of different decks this format. Bonnie, Dofi, and Black Yellow Luffy just completely fold to Luffy being able to attack their characters, swing multiple times, and just clear anything and get around any kind of protection. And then King Kong enables him by allowing him on 10 Dawn to swing 13 twice and remove pretty much any 2 characters from the board, and then placing a massive threat to your opponent's board or life because he can swing twice per turn. Next up, we have 3 Patchwork. I like having 3 Patchwork because Dofi is so prevalent in this meta. Patchwork being such low cost removal allows you to play it alongside of Kairos or Brook at pretty much any point in the game and remove a 4. That's amazing, giving you a lot of early options for removal into Dofi, especially since he's such a prevalent deck this format. Next up, I'm running 3 Jack. I like Jack because he is recurable off Rebecca, which makes him really easy to see at pretty much any point in the game. He is also an 11 cost character, which makes it really hard for Dofi and Lucci to get rid of him. A lot of the time, your opponent will be really scared of Jack and like forego a lot of really aggressive plays or value plays just to commit a lot of resources to removing the Jack, which ends up being in your favor most of the time. Also, being able to KO 3 costs every turn is great, and when you're running 21 bricks in the deck, being able to filter any of the ones that you don't need out of your hand makes them really strong. Next up, I'm going to move to my one-ofs and some weird text I'm playing. Playing one of Hina because being able to play a -4 cost off of Rebecca is really strong, especially in the late game when you need to be establishing blockers like every turn. And just being able to establish a blocker and give -4 and remove pretty much anything if you have Jack or Olympus established makes it a really strong card that you don't always need to see in the early game. So you're comfortable running her at 1. Next off, I have one Brook. Brook, I also think is really strong, giving you an extra early removal option off of Rebecca. And in the mid to late game, he can also be really strong because into Dofi, you can use Brook's ability to give -1 and KO a 0 to use Orlumbus to give -4. Then you can use Brook to KO a 0 and give -1 to another character, and then use Jack to KO that character because it's now a 3. Next up, I have a one of Leo. I was playing around with him because I was really scared of Dofi. So having Leo in here is great to be able to establish Orlumbus early and then remove something, or play Rebecca Hina and remove something, and just have a lot more KO options than you would have without it. Next up, I'm running 2 Scarlet. I essentially use her like a mini Helmeppo that gets to cheat stuff out sometimes. A lot of the time, when you're removing high end, you might not be able to hit just enough for your removal to actually KO something big, and Scarlet really helps you get over that threshold and gives you a lot more power plays. It doesn't really matter that she can only play from hand because you draw so much that you will most likely see the pieces that you need, and also not really care about going -1 just to play Scarlet. And then lastly, I'm running a one of Hadruden. I really like Hadruden because in the late game, a lot of the time, you start running out of board space because you need to be dropping maybe like 2 blockers a turn, or you need to be dropping an extra KO effect. And when you have Orlumbus on the field instead of Hadruden, it's really hard to cost reduce because you need that second character like a Kairos or a chump body like Rebecca Searcher to pop with Orlumbus. But Hadruden not needing that extra character is really useful, and it definitely came up in a lot of my games where having the extra board space to play a Mancherry plus a blocker or 2 blockers in a turn was extremely important. And as a bonus, he is a 7k body, which lets you swing into the small bodies that a lot of decks are playing right now, like Lucci. You can swing Hadruden into Lucci, or you can swing Hadruden into almost all of Dofi's characters and pretty much get a double removal out of him. A lot of people might be thinking, where is your other high end? Like Moria or Kuzan or Raging Tiger or Red Rock, anything like that. I opted not to run any of those because all of them are unsearchable and not recurable off of Rebecca, which makes them a little bit less consistent, especially when you want to be repeating plays over a really long game, or you want to be dropping them really early, which is why I value Jack more, because you can search him with Rebecca on your 5 dawn or 4 dawn turn and set up that play much earlier than you would having to hard draw something like Kuzan or Moria. And for my thoughts on all the other non-Dressrosa high-end or tech options that other people might be playing, I want to start off with Moria. I don't think Moria is super great in Rebecca because you're not playing all the other strong plays off of Moria. Like you don't have Ice Age, you don't have Pudding, you don't have Lucci, and you don't have Helmeppo, which are all really strong on-play effects. Rebecca has a lot of activate mains, which means you need to already have characters on the board set up like Jack or Brooke to be able to KO something off of their cost reduction. So your Moria plays end up being really oriented to just being value plays than removal plays, which doesn't relieve pressure from you and allow you to set up your board with high value characters like Luffy or Jack. Moria also takes up a lot of board space, and when you're already trying to drop things like Jack and Olympus plus Kairos or Mancherry, you end up running out of board space to drop Moria or like back-to-back Morias, and you'll probably end up playing Moria over another Moria. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I also don't think it does what the deck needs to do to win your bad matchups. I also don't like Kuzan and Automaki this format because Lucci is so strong. Dropping high end that isn't impactful in play just leads your opponent to negating your last turn by immediately removing them. I definitely think there's merit to maybe Kuzan, because if he does stick, he is really strong into a lot of different decks. But I also don't think you need to play him right now, because it doesn't help you with your worst matchup, which is Lucci. I'm also against Raging Tiger, because Raging Tiger doesn't really do anything into decks that aren't Dofi. You end up spending a lot of resources to neutralize the board state, but not push advantage by establishing bodies. It's also not searchable, and at stages later in the game, when you don't have the life or the blockers to play Raging Tiger, it just becomes a dead card in your hand. Lastly, I wanted to say why I don't have any blue cards in the deck. I don't really think any of the blue cards are currently needed in Rebecca. Stuff like Helmblaze and Pudding are really strong cards, but very situational, and a lot of blue cards are very inefficient when you have other searchable cards in the deck that you'd rather run. For my matchups this weekend, I went 6-3, winning against 3 Bonnies and 2 Dofis with a bye in the first round, and losing to 2 Luccis and 1 Dofi. I think this deck has a pretty good matchup into Dofi, because you can efficiently remove a lot of their bodies and then establish board. And once you have your board established, they don't really have anything to remove it. If they use events, then they're not establishing characters. If they're not establishing characters, then you can just reestablish the board that they removed. Against the Dofi that I lost to, I think I definitely could have had a lot better time, because I mismanaged my resources, and which are all just misplays. And the 2 matchups that I really were worried about was Lucci. Lucci is definitely this deck's worst matchup, and this deck is built with Lucci in mind. I wanted to play cards that are really inconvenient for Lucci, which is why I'm maxing out on Rebecca Searcher to search Karita and Kairos, which are unplay or unkillable into Lucci, and Sabo. There's also a lot of low to the ground plays in this deck that you can play while also establishing Sabo in the same turn. You also have stuff like Jack, which is an 11 cost, and it makes Lucci expend a lot more resources to remove. And when you drop Jack on 7, a Lucci player on 8 Dawn doesn't have any way to remove it without expending like two Ice Ages to remove it and dropping like a very small character like a Lucci or Brook. That being said, Lucci is still your hardest matchup, and I definitely think there's more that could be done with Rebecca to make your Lucci matchup better, which I think would be the best list currently and maybe into next format when we're still seeing a lot of Luccis. Thanks for watching this far into the video. Don't forget to like the video if you want to see more. I'm a little slow to upload, but I just want to commit to having good gameplay and good results so that when I present something, it works in practice. I definitely will upload videos of gameplay so that I can explain my thought processes throughout the course of a game, especially with how much moving parts I have in my list. Thanks for watching, and bye.